Hello and welcome. We are finally back to Fly Flamingo Fly, a podcast all about helping you stand out amongst the crowd in whatever you're doing in life. Yes, this podcast is 100% attracted to business owners, but I have many people who are not business owners listening to this as well, and some of them are my biggest cheerleaders, and they're the ones that got me back on the podcast. And I'm excited to introduce you to our first visitor, sharer, what else? What is another word that I would use to bring you on? Guest. There you go. That's what normal people would say. To the podcast for 2023. And it is Morgan. She is a coach for coaches. And I ran into her serendipitously through me creeping actually a Facebook story of Dawn's. And then I found her through my Facebook, and then I'm like, I need to find this girl. And then I went to Instagram and typed in her username and fell in love with how she showed up on social media. And now she's here. Morgan, welcome. I've heard your voice so many times through voice notes, and I'm excited to actually have your voice and face at the same time.
I love it. I'm so excited to be here. Am I your first guest, or I'm your first guest for 2023?
For 2023.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I'm flattered. Okay, cool. Yeah. I'm still excited to be here, though.
It's going to be really fun because I have so many questions for you.
And we already vibed. Like, we just met, a week ago, and we're like, let's get on the podcast. Let's do it.
Yeah, I was, and you pushed me really quickly, and I'm like, oh, I see how she's such a good coach.
Yeah.
I was like,
totally.
Yeah, let's schedule 2 weeks out. And you're like, so how about, let's just do next week instead? And I was like, right, I'm literally doing nothing this week.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so what I love to start out first with these guest podcasts is just learning a little bit about your story and how on earth you got to this point where you've become a very successful coach through the power of social media, probably among other referrals and things. But how did you get here, and what were you doing before?
This is a great question. My question is, how far back should I be going? How far back are we going here?
I mean, we can go back to, what was your, when you were doing, part-time gigs or full-time gigs before you decided to take the leap of faith and fly into entrepreneurship.
Okay, well, I took I took more than one leap of faith. The first time it didn't work.
Love it.
But, yeah, I would say, so basically, I went to school for forestry. That was the first thing I did. I wanted to be a park ranger. And then I kind of graduated from that, and I was like, I don't really think this is it. And I was like, well, I can't really find what I would love to do and make good money. So I was like, okay, let me just find something that I can at least make good money. So then I got into engineering. And then I think a year into engineering, I was kind of like, oh man, I know that they're going to pay for my school and stuff. And I know that I'm going to make really good money. And white picket fence life was all laid out in front of me. But I was like, oh God, I just think my soul's going to die if I continue on this path. So I was like, okay, don't know what I want to do, but it's not this. And then what happened? I was in a online training program at the time. Do you know who Barbell Shrugged is?
No.
Anyways, okay, doesn't matter. At the time, they had a #1 rated health and fitness podcast on iTunes. And I found them on YouTube, and I started doing their training programs. And all I knew was I really loved health and fitness and that kind of stuff. And I don't know what possessed me to do this one day, but I was like, why couldn't I do what they're doing? They were selling online training programs and podcasting and having the time of their lives, traveling around the world. I was like, I want to do that. How do I get around those people? You know that saying, you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with? So I was like, oh, how do I learn from these guys? So found the CEO's, I found the CEO's email address somehow, and I wrote him this essay. I was like, can I come work for you for free? I have nothing to offer you, but could I somehow get in your world? It's I'll do anything. So he's like, all right, you crazy Canadian. It took me a week to write this essay. So he's like, yeah, sure. You want to drop everything and come down to Memphis and work at our CrossFit gym? Go for it. So I was like, sweet. So I called my mom. I was like, yeah, I'm dropping out of engineering. And she's like, okay, that's a crazy idea. Do you want someone to come for the trip? And I was like, sweet, yeah, totally. So I dropped out of engineering, took all the money that I had saved for paying for school and stuff, and we went to Memphis. And long story short, that's kind of how I found some degree of coaching and health fitness stuff. coached there for a bit. Then their podcast got really big and they moved to California. And then I was like running out of money at the CrossFit gym. So I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to make money. So they're like, well, we could hire you as our intern, at this company that they moved to Southern California. So then I got into like social media management for them. And I worked as the CEO's executive assistant. So that's kind of like got my start in like online business and marketing and funnels and like learned about all that stuff. And then I got into like the nutrition side of coaching. So like precision nutrition, like I got my health coaching cert because I was like, oh, like fitness is cool, but I actually think I really like nutrition. So I kind of got on that side. But that's how I originally got into it. And then, after that, like I struggled for a really long time. Like 2014 is when I left engineering. I think 2016 is when I left my job, like with Barbell Shrugged. And then I think like 2016 to 2019 was like struggle street. I mean, just like trying to like figure it out, not getting anywhere, waiting tables to pay bills. Like, holy crap, I could have been engineered back by now. Why can't I figure this out? And then like eventually in 2020, it started to really click. So that's kind of the backstory of how I found the coaching, if that makes sense.
It does. And it sounds like you, that marketing piece is really huge. Like the marketing experience that you got working with those guys, like you got to see how their entire sales funnel worked. And learning about funnels is a gift. I also had a marketing experience where I got to learn about funnels. I had no idea what people were talking about when I first got into the marketing agency. And then by the end, I could talk about it and educate about it like crazy. And I realized most of the world doesn't understand that piece. They understand website, email marketing. That's it.
Yeah. Don't even get me started on websites. Don't. Oh.
It's like they're a fun landing page, but I'm excited to get you started on a website. Get you started on that topic.
Yeah.
So you leap to faith fully, like making probably enough to live as a coach in 2020? Is that when, like you said, it got lift off?
Yeah, like 2016 is when I was kind of like waiting bills and waiting tables to kind of pay bills and trying to figure things out. In 2017, I saved up enough money to be like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go out and build my health coaching business. And then like, I don't know, 5 or 6 months later in 2018, I had to go back and get another job. So I the first time I leapt, it didn't work. But the second time that I leapt was like, I had gotten this job. I think I got it in like November of 2019 working for this startup. You know who Trellis is? Are you from Kelowna? You know
I do know who Trellis is.
You know Justin?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so I tried to get Justin into a morning routine challenge that I was running at one point. And he was like, you're kind of good at this lead gen thing. Like, we could really use you as our lead generation person at the startup. So I was like, okay, man, like, sure. I mean, it was going to be a huge pay cut, but I was like, okay, well, I'll learn something, right?
Right.
So I kind of did that for him for 3 months. And then at the end of it, I still had that like, I want to work for myself. I just remember walking home one day being like, I just can't build somebody else's dream. I have to be building my own. And that's when I leapt the second time. And that's when it clicked. It was in 2020. Yeah.
Crazy. And then we all know what happened in 2020 and everything else after. Things just...
Well, like you mean, are you talking about the whatever that was? That's kind of here? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Just as a side note on that, I remember I left Trellis the month before that happened. So I left Trellis, and this is like the first time I'm like out on my own, like no like safety nets kind of thing, right? And a month later, like the world got I was like locked down, like the stocks were plummeting, like nobody was spending money, Facebook ads were super cheap, and I remember like sitting on my sofa one day being like so like stressed and worried about like what am I gonna do? Like what if I have to go back, to the restaurant and like with my tail between my legs and being like, can you please hire me back? And then I was like, oh my God, there's no job to go back to. Like the restaurants are closed. I was like, boats were burned. And then it was like, you literally have to do this. You literally have to make this work. And I remember telling myself, I had a mindset coach a couple months before, and she really taught me how to stay out of scarcity mindset, like how to see abundance when like all you can really see is like scarcity. And I remember like having a conversation with myself. I was like, okay, if you let your mind go left and you go down scarcity lane, that's going to show up for you. If you keep entertaining those thoughts, you are going to manifest them. You can't entertain any of it. You have to, like, I just made a decision. I've just decided, like my mentality was like, this is going to be the best freaking thing that ever happened to my business. And I just went, and I, like, anyone who was like trying to get me left, I was like, nope, can't hear you, can't hear you. Like, blinders were on. And like, once I made that decision and I just went for it, like, I went from having like maybe making $1,000 a month to when I like fully committed and decided and applied myself, I did like my first 20K sales month like 2 months from that time. And like, you have to think too, there's like 3 years of proof or stories of me being like, I'm a struggling coach, I don't know what I'm doing, I can't figure this out, to like having a month like that, like basically my world exploded, you know?
I mean, yeah, especially if you're making $1,000, used to making like maybe $1,000 a month, times that by 12, like you're only making $12,000 versus like 20 in 1 month.
In a month.
It's like, hey, wealth, that feels good. Let's do that again.
And terribly frightening to your ego and your identity. It was like a crisis.
Very frightening.
Yeah.
It's actually very funny and interesting. The more money you make, the more that ego is like ready to shut it down.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot. So that's an interesting journey, and there's like so many questions riding through my head right now. But so were you so you were a coach and you were doing health coaching when you made your first 20, or were you coaching coaches by this point?
My niche was all over the map. Like, my bio said that I was a habits coach, but people were hiring me as their mindset coach. 'Cause I was like, the thing that I got really good at, and this is what I think I kind of bring to the table that maybe people don't focus on as much, is like, I got good at the back end of signing clients. Like, I got good at like the lead generation, DMs, conversations, building relationships, versus like talking with people one-to-one versus talking at them like one-to-many with content. So my bio and my messaging was like completely sideways. Said I was a habits coach, but people were hiring me as a life coach, as a mindset coach, as a business coach, as a, like, every kind of coach. They just labeled me whatever they needed, you know? So like, I didn't really have a niche, but I technically, like, I was a habits coach for entrepreneurs. Like, I was trying to get Justin into my 21-day morning routine challenge, right? But people were hiring me like all over the map because I was building relationships on the back end. So my marketing, my front facing, didn't need to be like perfect. Yeah.
Interesting. And is that a lesson learned and a lesson to coaches out there that are hyper focusing on their marketing on the outside? Like, that's where I see a lot of thoughts go, is like how I'm showing up on the front end of social versus the actual nurturing of the community and the relationships behind the scenes.
Totally. And I think, like, honestly, for the people who are making, even if you're making a lot of money and you're doing it a lot through content, I can guarantee to you, like, even my mentor or some of the ladies in my mastermind, they're making lots of money through the content stuff, but I guarantee you there's so many dollars slipping through the cracks because their follow-up is not great and they don't like have that piece, right? So I think, and even when you look at, you know who Tanner Chidester is? Ever heard of him?
I do not.
I don't know. I'm probably saying his last name wrong, but anyways, he's done like 50 million in sales. He's done like a lot, like helped a lot of people. And he's like more on the ad side and stuff like that. But he's like, everything changed for me when because he was like trying to run ads to a webinar or to a masterclass. He's like, but then when I figured out that 90% of my sales came from the follow up, he's like, that's when my ads got real profitable, you know? And so I think, like, on one side, there's the people who already are making a lot of money and they don't know how much they're leaving on the table by not doing this stuff. And then I think on the flip side, for the newer coaches who are out there, when you this is what I feel like people don't understand. Signing your first couple clients is the hardest because you have no credibility. You have no authority. Nobody trusts you. You have no testimonials. You have no case studies. Like, you have no ground to stand on. Like, you're creating something from nothing. And so I think, I feel like I know really like in my soul that when you're first starting out, your content is, your marketing, your messaging's not dialed. You don't know what you're doing and nobody trusts you. So like the leg up, the advantage that you have is building friggin' relationships with people and knowing how to use the back end of Instagram. So I think it's like, if you're new, you absolutely need to be doing this. And even if you're experienced and if you would just start doing this, you'd make so much more money. So I think it's just like a completely Like, not that many people know how to do it. And the people who do know how to do it on like a big scale, and they have like appointment setters and things like that, are crushing it. They're crushing it. So that's
Mm-hmm.
my thoughts on that.
I like it.
Yeah.
And just to define what back end of Instagram means,
Yeah.
what does that mean?
Um, God, there's so much of it, but I think like, even put it this, like I feel like I'm going to go down so many rabbit holes on this, but I mean, if somebody comes into your world and they just followed you, cool. Do you reach out and do you say hello? Do you connect with them? Do you like build, like if someone like the analogy I give people is like, if you walked into a restaurant, because people ask me this, they're like, should you reach out to people that follow you? I'm like, well, if you walked into a restaurant, like, would you expect the hostess to say hello? Like, yeah, you should, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's just little things like that. Like, if people come into your world, like, there's a customer experience in, the hospitality industry. Like, what's your customer experience for people on Instagram? Like, if they see your page and they follow you, do you introduce yourself? Do you find something like-minded to connect? Because if you like, ask about them or ask about their life, or like maybe someone follows me and like, let's say I saw you follow me, right? And I'm like, oh, you surf? Oh, you cool. Or like, oh, you're in Thailand. Cool. I'd love to go to Thailand. We're talking about Thailand now. And like, we're building a relationship. And now when I post content, you notice because we actually know each other. We actually connect, right? It's like the same thing that you'd be doing with dating. Like you're finding common ground. It's the same. I know you love these analogies, right?
I love these analogies.
Yeah. So it's like, how are you interacting with people when they come in your world? Are you creating touch points for them to engage with you on your polls and stuff like that? And if they do, like, are you engaging back? If people are commenting on your posts, are you commenting back? Like, do you know, like, honestly, do you know who your 5 hottest leads are right now? Are you strategically engaging with them so that you get more of their eyeballs on your content? Because, like, you can do that, Like, if you're selling on your stories and you're posting a sales story and Sandra's interested, cool. Go to Sandra's stories and interact with Sandra, and now the algorithm knows that you and Sandra have a relationship, and she's getting fed more of your content because you're interacting. So it's just like, it's a lot of different things. The back end of Instagram, it's also knowing, like, I tell people all the time, like, go see, like, pay attention to who's paying attention. Like, who's liking everything? Who's commenting? Who are the people at the top of your story watchers? Like, how you click in the bottom left-hand corner and it says, like, story viewers, and it, like, shows the list? You ever see that?
Yeah.
Well, the people who are at the top are the people who watch your stories the most. You can literally see it. Like, it's a whole, I feel like it's a science at this point. Is like, you can see when people are starting to get warmer and warmer and warmer as a lead, they come up to the top of your stories. Once you know what it looks like for a cold lead to come in and get warmer and warmer and warmer, and then you can see them starting to like stuff. You can see them starting to comment. You can see them starting to watch your stories. You can see them starting to vote on polls. And next thing you know, they're like watching all the time and they're like at the top of your stories. It's like, yeah, that person, like, you could just tell. Like, I know people are going to inquire before they inquire. Like, it's so creepy.
Right.
It's so creepy.
And like from what I noticed when I talked to probably like 30 coaches minimum while I was away. Just because they all go to that island, and it's just they're mostly health coaches, so like spiritual coaches of some sort, or health, fitness, like they're your niche if you had one.
Totally.
So I was
I
like,
need to
go to
this
that
island. I
island.
want to go to Thailand anyways.
Just go to that island, the full moon island, and just park yourself in a bungalow and meet everyone and engage and find them all through the hashtag.
I should. Do you know who Alex Hormozy is?
Who? Alex
Hormozy.
It sounds familiar.
He's the guy who wrote the book $100 Million Offers.
Okay. Yeah. I've heard that one.
Anyways, if anyone listening to this or watching this has not read that book, totally 10 out of 10 recommend. But he's got this story where he used to do gym turnarounds. And he used to do gym turnarounds, and that's how he got so good at like helping fitness businesses do that thing. So if I do niche down to health coaches, I should just fly in there and kind of do like turnarounds like in person, and I'd have a kick-ass story for marketing purposes.
You really would. Yeah.
I flew to Thailand to find all the health coaches. Anyway. Yeah.
They're all there. Like, yeah. I was shocked. And the biggest thing is I'm watching them. There's 2 things that they were struggling with the most, just on the themes, which you'll be like, oh yeah, I heard that. Posting paralysis. So not sure what to post because they didn't know even what to do. They just stopped. And really hyper focused on how they were showing up and like didn't even think about the community behind the scenes. So those were definitely the two things, like you said, the lead, follow up for sure. And overthinking their websites and all of those extra things like the marketing funnels and the emails and the online courses, everyone wanting to build an online course and then driving ads and those kinds of things. So I'm curious what your thought process is when people go so far and focus on all those things rather than just like that one person that's going to be a conversion.
I just have so many tangents that we could go on right now. Um, I mean, let's start with the website and then we can move to the funnels and the other things. But the thing that drives me crazy, and I have good language, I feel now, to explain this stuff because I've had to do it so many times. But like, to give anyone who's listening to this context, like I've almost done like 400K in sales in my business, and I do not have a website.
Yeah.
Like I don't have one. I've never had. Actually, I did. That's a lie. When I was into health coaching, I built a website. It took me a lot of time. I was overthinking it, analysis paralysis. I was like, oh my God, how do I do this? I had to hire a designer. I spent $500. I got the fancy photo shoot. I built the little email list opt-in things where people like meal prep guides and all this stuff. It looked super, super good. I kind of wish I still had it up, but I think I took it down because I got sick of paying for the hosting.
Right.
I was like, I don't need to spend this $200 every year. But anyways, I did all those things. And like, I think so many coaches are under especially in health coaching, because I think that they get told like that's what you need to do when you come out. Like, I think their schools a lot of times teaches them that because they definitely taught me that.
Totally.
And I have another rant on that, but let me not get distracted. But it's like, I did that, and the only reason I teach now not to do that is because I already made the mistake, and it cost me hundreds of dollars and years of my life because I was like, oh, if I build this website, they will come. But what people don't understand is that your website is a conversion tool. And like the way in its simplest form, and I'm preaching in the choir here with you, but like in its simplest form, online business works like traffic conversion. You send traffic to a conversion tool and then you have a client and you make money, right? But like if you build a website, a conversion tool, and you have no traffic to send to the website, nobody buys anything. Nobody books any calls. Nothing happens, which is why like you have to have something. Like if they're hiring you to pay money to run media to something, maybe to a website. Mm-hmm. That's fine. That's where they're getting their traffic from, paid media. Or you can get your traffic by reaching out to people, like cold outreach. You can get your traffic by posting content and getting people, like attraction marketing, right? But you have to have a traffic source. So people build this website and then they expect that to turn into clients, but it's like, well, you didn't send anyone there. So no one's just going to find your website. So that's kind of my rant with that, is just like people think it's a build it and they will come scenario, and it's a build it and it'll be a ghost town scenario is really what it is, you know?
Yeah. It's like not necessary in order to build a successful coaching company.
Totally.
Like to be a coach, you don't have to have the website first before you can start saying you're a coach.
Totally. 100%. And that's what I think too. They think it's like a credibility piece, but I just teach people to turn their Instagram account into their website. It's like, hey, that logo you were going to make, that's your profile photo. Great. Hey, that business card you were going to make, that's your bio. Oh, that website you were going to make, that's your story highlights, right? Like you put an about me story highlight, you put a results story highlight, you put a tips story highlight, and now you have your testimonials tab on your website, which is the credibility piece. You have your story about you tab, and then the blog tab or stuff that you would have had, that's your Instagram content. And guess what? Totally. Your traffic source and your conversion point is now one thing. It's one straight line. You don't have to build both, right? Like the eyeballs are already on Instagram. It's really hard to push them off Instagram to go click some external link. Like that's more resistance and people fall off. So instead of doing that, like just make Instagram your website and it's a 2-in-1. You feed two birds with one seed, right?
And then they convert through the DMs?
I mean, yeah, like I do see a lot of coaches. I mean, there's a number of things you can do. I advocate for two things. Either you put a call to action right underneath your like statement in your bio, like I have DM me quote clients for help or something like that. And then they're DMing you. Or you could say book a call with arrows down
And
and
then you
you
have the
leave the
call
link
link.
direct to your Calendly. Like even if you had a website, why would you send them to your website to get them to book a call with you? Now they go on your website and then they see all these different tabs and then they're confused. Now they're looking at your recipes like, yeah, I'm going to try that. And then next thing you know, they're off and they were interested and you don't even know they were on your website. So it's like, why would you do that? Just give them one thing, you know? Just
Mm-hmm.
tell them to just book with your Calendly link or just tell them to DM you. And I prefer DMing you because then you get to build a relationship. And that way you know that they're a lead. Whereas if they go to your Calendly thing and then they back out and they don't book, you had no idea that they were even there, right?
Right. I love that.
Yeah.
So good. So,
Yeah.
and then with the posting paralysis, coaches not wanting to ask or like not wanting to post on social media.
Is that a question?
Yeah. What do you do? How do you navigate the posting paralysis? Like the
Oh
overthinking.
God. I mean, I think there's a number of things, but one of them can be solved, in my opinion, by the back end of Instagram, by having conversations, because guess what that is? It's market freaking research, right? You're
Yeah.
talking to your ideal customers. And like, if you talk to them and you figure out what they're struggling with, and then you go create content that solves those problems, that's the content. Like, that's how you attract
Right.
them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think, like, one way is to have some conversations with people. That could be in the DMs, that could be on market research calls, whatever. That's one way to like figure out what you could be posting. Another way, like, I feel like so many little people do this, but it's like, go reverse engineer things. Like, what are all the other health coaches talking about? And not to like copy their stuff, but to go get ideas. And so I think, like, in general, like posting actually is really like, it's not that hard. It just has to be valuable for the person. So it's like, go talk to your customers or go see what other people are doing, or I don't know, what are you learning in your health coaching school or whatever that could help somebody, or what are you teaching your clients? Like that, I feel like that's where a lot of my content comes from. It's like, oh, I just said that to Sally, cool, I'm going to tell her the exact same thing, just on a reel, right?
Right.
So I just don't think the content thing's that hard. I think it's more of people are trying to make it perfect and they're worried about what people think. I think it's more of those fears. But in terms of the analysis paralysis and perfection and trying to make it perfect, the thing is, like people just hate things that they're not good at. So the irony of this is, if you just post more, just by sheer volume of posts, you will get better. And then
You
when you
will.
get better, you actually start to like it. And then when you like it, you want to do it more. Like, I love content now, but I used to hate content. You would never think that looking at my stuff now. But like, I used to have a friend, honestly, thank God for him, because if he never stuck with me when I didn't believe in myself, like, I probably wouldn't be here. But like, it was like pulling teeth to get me to film a video. It was pulling teeth to get me to do 15 minutes of work on my business. And now I have an alarm on my phone that's like, stop working at 7:30. So it's just like, you just have to understand that it's not going to be easy at first, but that's fine. And the more you post, that's how you find your voice. That's how you get good. And I think, like, if you can add in some of those conversations with people behind the scenes, you'll have your topics, right?
Mm-hmm. And then you'll
Yeah.
have an abundance of topics, and then you'll never be paralyzed again because there's just too much to talk about.
Yeah. And I
And
think
you're all about the videos now. Like
I'm all
you're
about
on
the
video
videos.
all the time. I really enjoy it. I think it's fantastic and always entertaining. And I walk away from my phone with a smile on my face. I have laughed or
Good.
smiled, and I've also
Good.
learned something.
Good, good. That's my point. It's like, if I can get people to, if I can at least moderately maybe get someone to crack a smile or something, like, that's good. And if they learn something cool, it's like what the
Bonus.
barbell shrug guys I used to work for, they called it edutainment.
Yeah, love that
It's
word.
kind of both. Yeah,
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 love a good edutainment opportunity.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, eliciting emotion always makes people feel more connected. So
Totally,
that's like no matter what you do on social media, if you can make someone feel an emotion, they will feel more connected to you, as long as
totally.
it's a positive emotion
Yeah,
of some kind. And so as you've navigated, I mean, you've had a really big year this year, money wise, based
totally.
on what I've seen, which is amazing. Congratulations. That's
Thanks.
huge.
Yeah,
And like you said, you haven't done a huge, like you've just been nurturing and creating amazing communities and been able to help a lot of people.
mm-hmm.
And so what kind of programs do you run in order to have been able to reach that milestone. I would like you to share the milestone if you'd like to. If
Yeah,
you're open to
totally.
it.
I
Yeah.
love it. I don't think I've said this too much publicly. I guess I did talk about it in my stories the other day, but
I did see it.
yeah, I think so far we're not. I mean, the year's technically not over, but I think I'm at about 258K in sales or something like that. So like, never thought I was like when I started out health coaching. Never did I think I was going to create a $250,000 a year business. You know, at the time it
Yeah.
was like, if I could just work, you know, and get paid like 60 grand a year, like I was going to get from forestry school and help people and do what I love, like I'd be happy. But yeah, I just cracked the $250,000 mark, which is exciting. Yeah.
Which is really exciting. And
Yeah.
it's just you. Do you have any team members that support you?
I have no team members.
You're
Yeah.
doing it.
I gotta start to. That's a thing now. I'm talking to. Like, gotta get a VA maybe. I do actually have a video editor, but even right now he's not doing much because I'm 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 not ahead on my content, so I'm just putting it out myself right now.
Right.
But yeah, it's just me, which is crazy to think that you can do that by yourself. It's pretty wild, right?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, delegating is an amazing thing. And the fact that you've been able to get to 250K on your own
Yeah.
is an even bigger milestone and shows personal, like coaches, like you don't have to start hiring straight away. Like what we get on our side, like we're a social media management agency. I used to get coaches just starting out wanting to hire me. And I'm like, hold
Right.
on. Like, you're not making enough. And
Yeah.
that's something that I've had to learn as a social media management agency is like, I actually need to move them away and tell them to go back and don't delegate this. Even though you want to, don't do
Totally.
it. And so that
And
you've
that's a
made
good point.
250K and you haven't delegated anything.
Yeah. Now, new
Really.
level, new devil. New level, new devil.
New level,
because
new devil. Yes.
what got me here won't get me there. And now I'm like, oh,
No.
I have to let go of some of the control. I'm like,
Like,
oh,
what
it's uncomfortable
will
for
you
me.
let go?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah, delegating it's the hardest thing at the beginning, but then you become a
Mhm.
queen at it. And
Yeah.
then you got to learn how to not over delegate, which is what I learned this year was to not delegate too much, too fast.
that's going to be my theme in 2023. Thanks for the intention. Delegation
welcome.
queen.
Delegation
Delegation
queen.
queen.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
ready to get to the 500K.
Totally.
where you're
Or even
going
let's go even farther. Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that.
BNL did just hit their 500K, and that was a lot
Yeah.
of personal development and work and figuring out things and a lot of lessons because that
Yeah.
more money, more problems thing, I actually understand it.
Yeah.
now.
Totally.
But it's a huge milestone.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. it's
There's
crazy.
there's a girl in one of the masterminds that I'm in, and she's so brilliant. And she said one day in the mastermind, she's like, I just keep thinking, how do I get better problems? I'm like, what a brilliant question. Because
I love that.
we all have problems, like no matter what
Yes.
level we are, but it's just like,
Better
how do I
one.
get better problems? And how do I become a better person so that the old problems just don't stress me out anymore? You know?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my goal, you've inspired me to continue to build out my personal brand, which is something that I was hiding behind the business. And
There
I
you
think
go.
this could be something that is really interesting for, like, as a coach, you can't hide behind the business. It's not possible. But for other
Yeah.
people who are listening, I'm a huge believer that the person who owns the business does have to show up for the brand in some way, shape, or form. And so navigating that, even if you're not a coach, is really important. So there's a lot of lessons here that you're teaching that land for me as well.
Totally.
And so I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah. We're learning
So-
from each other.
We are. But the fun thing is, I know you know so much about social media. So we can like talk about bigger things as well. With like as you move into the next stage of your growth, you're offering group programs and one-on-one right now, correct?
Yeah. So yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, oh, we forgot that question, but
Yeah, what do you
I'm
offer?
glad you looped it back around. Yeah, it's honestly been, I would say this year it's probably half and half, like 1-to-1 and group.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't launch any group programs this year. It was all actually 1-to-1 until July.
Wow.
So I didn't have any. It was all 1-to-1. But now it's kind of like this, maybe like a 50-50 split. But I am starting to move away from the 1-to-1 because like it's just, I can't scale that as well.
No.
And like, especially now where like I'm the bottleneck in everything, it's like I kind of need time to figure out how to hire people and like all these other things. So I am slowly pulling away from one-to-one, but to answer your question, like I've been running. I think this is kind of cool. I don't know if like some people would maybe have a different perspective, but I've been running the same group program like since I started. Like I've just done iteration, iteration, iteration. I have never launched a new program. And like I think that actually kind of says something about it. Like I see a lot of people, they're always launching the new thing, the next thing, this other thing. But I'm more like, no, I want this one thing to be like really, really good. And so like I just keep iterating the same program. So it's like the program that I had in, I don't know, 2020 is like the same one I have in 2023. It's just like version 5, if that makes sense.
Right. It's kind of like university, you know, like you get the new textbook and it's like got
Totally.
some updates, but the foundations of that textbook are the same.
Totally. So yeah, that's the only two things I've had. That's only 2 offers I've had so far. It's just one-to-one and one group coaching program.
And I think that's actually a really good lesson in like you don't need to diversify insanely.
Yeah.
Stay focused on one thing and one thing that you're great at and
Yeah.
just continue to make it great.
Yeah.
And then the money will come.
Yeah. And I think like this might not be as relevant. I'm not sure 100% where like all your audience is, but you know, some of those different like offers can be good, but they can also like kind of overcomplicate your strategy and like your marketing sometimes. So, you know, I have one mentor. Do you know James Wedmore?
No, but I'm loving all these names that you're dropping, and I feel like I should be taking notes.
Yeah. Anyways, he says like more products, more problems sometimes, but it's like it's kind of like building the website is like it's just like adding complexity when you could just have it simple and have Instagram your website. It's kind of the same thing. It's like you don't necessarily want like 20 programs you're trying to sell. Like that means you have to dial in 20 different marketing strategies for 20 different programs, right? So
Right.
yeah, it's like you got to dial in messaging now for 20 offers instead of, 2 offers. Yeah.
And so now, like when you are in a marketing, would you say that you go into like push phases and like you've got some like do you launch every like does it run on an evergreen program or is it like you launch certain intakes throughout the year?
So it was certain intakes, and then I moved it evergreen, and then I stopped promoting the group altogether, and then I started launching it again on timelines, and now I'm probably going to start to move it evergreen, but like it's still on launch timelines right now. I just want to move away from that because I don't necessarily love launching. Like I would rather just not have to give up my life for like certain months of the year, because like it's a lot. Like I was running a master class. It's just a lot to like promote the master class and get everyone there and make sure everyone shows up and then follow up with everyone, and like it's just like I kind of want to move away from that. So yeah, I'm kind of moving back toward the evergreen. Yeah.
I love that. And you said you have a stop at 7:30, so like you don't let yourself work after 7:30 p.m. What does a day in the life look like for Morgan Gillis?
Oh God, this is such a crazy question. I'm like I don't know. It depends. It depends. Like sometimes I'm like, there'll be weeks when I am just feeling like, you know what, I've been pushing too hard, and like I'll just rent a camper van, like spur of the moment, and like go on an 11-day adventure and like do bare minimum, and just like travel and refill my cup or whatever, right? So there's some weeks that look like that. But truthfully, I think a lot more of my days look like very disciplined. Like some people would probably be like sick at the amount of discipline. But like, I don't know, I'll get up at like 5 and be working at like 5:30, and like I don't really take any calls. Like the earliest I have a call is like 10, and if I can swing it, I don't take anything till like 2. So I kind of get like a lot of the morning to do, I don't know, if I'm doing tax stuff or if I'm building if I'm putting together ads, or like I'm working like on my business, not in my business. You know what the Pomodoro method is?
I do. 20-minute intervals.
Right.
Break.
So like, yeah. So like the night before I'll like kind of plan out my day, and I'll get up and I'll do like 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes of stretching, 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes of stretching, especially if I'm doing a task I hate. Like if it's a task, like it's like tax stuff or something, and I'm like, oh, so monotonous. I just use that Pomodoro timer and do stuff like that. And then, so yeah, let's say like 5 to, I don't know, 9 is something like that. And then maybe between like 10 and 2, I'm like doing more so calls and coaching, and I'm on Instagram and I'm posting, and I'm more like in the business, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're active.
Yeah, but I like to get up early and like I like to have that flow time in the morning. I don't think enough people have that, like that deep focused time. It's like, how do you guys get anything done? You know,
Yeah.
because as
Because
soon
if
as you
you're
start
doing stuff
context
that
switching,
early,
yeah,
yeah.
it's like no one else is up, and then that way you're not like on Instagram, and then you're on TikTok, and then you're in your email inbox, and then Sandra needs something, and then someone's on Voxer, and it's just like, I can't do that. So
I love
I
when you
kind of have.
keep referencing Sandra because I have a Sandra
Do you?
on my
We're
team.
I'm not singling you out, Sandra.
Love you, Sandra.
Yeah, love you. But yeah, that's pretty much how it works. Like focused work in the morning, lunch, and then after that it's kind of like clients and more like in the business stuff, and then I don't know, do a workout, something, and be off for the day. Yeah.
Yeah. And then and so some gifts that this last year sounds like well, obviously it's the most successful year you've had so far.
Hmm.
What are some gifts that you've been able to find? I mean, you just mentioned that you took 11 days in order to camper van. So it sounds like you've been on some adventures in the last year or two.
Definitely.
What are some of the freedom pieces that this business has provided you?
That's a great question. That's a great question. I mean, even right now, like not being in Canada, not
Yeah,
being in the snow, it's like, oh, I can opt out for this. Cool. No, thank you. See you later.
you can just go.
Yeah. So like last winter, I spent a lot of time in San Diego. Um, it did allow me to like rent a camper van for like 11 days and just on a whim and just like go to like Sedona and Joshua Tree and San Fran and like all these different places. Went around like Utah and did like all the five like major national parks like Zion and stuff like that.
Amazing.
Um, last, I think last spring, summer, I drove my car down to San Diego. So then I had to drive back up, but it was cool because I went all up the West Coast, got to visit a bunch of my friends in Kelowna, got to visit some of my clients on the way back and actually stayed with them. Visited my uncle in Toronto, like got to spend the summer with my family because they were like selling our childhood home. So like I kind of went home for the summer and like got to say goodbye and like
Yeah.
surf and see my family and stuff like that. And like now I'm back here in the winter. So it's just like it just allows you a lot of freedom, you know? Like I could come visit you in Thailand at some point, you know?
Yeah.
Things like that.
You can go where the wind takes you kind of thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I do
Yeah.
think for the record though, I just want to say one thing is like it does allow you a lot of freedom, like in terms of traveling, like time freedom,
Hmm.
um, location freedom and time freedom. And it's just like it's super fun to work from home. Like just it's just fun to work from home. Like it really is.
Different.
It's yeah, I guess it can be challenging, I'll say that. It can be challenging.
Yes.
But there's just like a lot of freedom to setting your own schedule. But with those things said, you like don't I don't want people to think it's like you don't have to work or like it's a total cakewalk because like it's not a total cakewalk. Like no one's paying you. Like you don't get a salary. Like what that stuff falls on you and you do have to work. So like just so everyone who's listening doesn't get some sort of unrealistic expectation of what it is, you know?
Totally. And
Yeah.
that was a lesson that I learned this year too, because I over delegated. So I was at a point where I was like twiddling my thumbs, being like, oh my goodness. And as a creative, I was going insane. So I just kept starting to blow up my business. Like my team was like, what is happening? And I would just like find problems where they weren't any. And my poor team, I'm grateful for them forever. Most of them listen.
Yeah.
They know. And then I went to Thailand and it was quiet. And they were like, it's so quiet. And they're like, we love you, Megan, but it's quiet. And I was like, okay, gonna reflect on this. So
Right.
like I love building and like a lot of entrepreneurs, we love to do the things and we like to keep
Mhm.
moving forward and we are also very creative people. And what you've talked about, that discipline piece, that thing, because you feel the lack of discipline, it can be really nice because I lived in a world full of discipline for so many years that I was like, oh, this is so nice to not have to do, and like I could do things when I wanted to, but it wasn't like, I didn't have a set schedule and all of that. And I was actually going a little nuts.
Yeah.
And so the discipline piece is coming back for 2023.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think it's really inspiring that you bring that to the table and you definitely, I'm assuming, bring it into the coaching.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
you do. Do you see that in entrepreneurs that you work with and coaches? The discipline piece is the hardest one.
Oh yeah. I mean, like, there's the one sticky note that's on front of my in the front of my computer screen. It just says "do the boring work," And like that's something from Alex, which I'm obsessed with the man. But anyways, he's like I say, he wrote that book, $100 Million Offers. Great guy to follow. But anyways, I listen to a lot of his stuff, and I think it's partially because like we just how he thinks is like how I think. Like I don't know, I just really when you find those people that just like really align up with you, he's kind of one of those people for me. But he talks about it a lot, and it's been helpful for me because he's just like, you have to do the boring work. And entrepreneurs, like, we get into this because like we don't like to do the same thing all the time. That's why we got into this. But he's like, at some point you need to do like that. You just need to do more of what's working, more volume. And it's not new. It's rarely new or different. It's better is what you need to be. Like, that's how you scale. That's your leverage. And so like I find that with myself, it's like you have to do the things that got you here. You have to post the content. You have to do the reach outs. You have to talk to the people. Like, you have to book the calls. Like, that is what you need to do. And so like that's on front of my computer. And I do think a lot of people struggle with that. Because like a client came to me yesterday, or not yesterday, a couple days ago. And he had some big months, some 12K months or something like that. But he's like, yo, there's no lead flow coming in, like da-da-da. We went back to the basics. Like, what's your messaging? Cool. Are you selling on your stories every day? Are you doing this stuff? And as soon as he started to do that stuff again, starts booking calls. I'm like, yeah, you can't stop doing the things that got you here. So I do see that a lot.
I like
and
that.
if I could give
doing the things that got you here.
Totally. And if I could give people just one piece of advice on this that has really helped me is like, instead of trying to have your business create the excitement for you, like there's always needs to be something new. I need to be building a new program, and then you have 20 programs, right? And you're not selling any of the programs because you're building things all the time, which we love to do. Like, instead of making that your creative outlet, make content your creative outlet. So your business is the same, but you're scratching that itch for like new and exciting and like creativity through your marketing. So I think like that is actually something that has helped me like be able, like, it's, you still have that outlet, but you're still doing the things that matter, if that makes sense. Like, instead of building a new program, just get creative with the packaging around the program, a different masterclass or different content or something like that, versus starting from scratch.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. And I mean, you said a little thing about like selling through stories, and I'm a huge advocate for this, and people don't believe me.
Yeah.
So the cool thing is you're here and you'll be evidence. The power of the power of Instagram stories is real, and
It
you
is
can
very
tell
real.
through stories faster and more effectively than any other piece of content.
100%. Other than the DMs, but I would argue that
The stories lead
the
to the
stories lead to the DMs, especially if you're doing polls and stuff like that. But yeah, like, stories are the place to sell on Instagram. They're infinitely more powerful than selling on your feed. Way more powerful. Yeah, 100%.
How would you say the breakdown of like what is the reason for posts versus what is the reason for stories versus what is the reason for reels?
So it's funny. We made this a topic of conversation in the mastermind that I'm in the other day. But it's like, truly, feed is a little more about value. It's about positioning yourself with credibility and authority, providing massive value. That's more of the feed. And it's very like niche specific, like niche specific, solving specific problems for a specific person, value, credibility, authority, so people know, like, and trust you, right? And then your stories, truly, I view your stories as, number one, going deeper on your personality, and just like the day in the life, behind the scenes stuff that like isn't as curated as your feed would be. That is what builds the depth of connection with people, which, like, if people connect more with you, then they're way more likely to buy from you, right? So that's one piece, but then the other piece is selling. So I view stories as like creating more connection on a deeper level and selling, and then I view feed as more like value, niche specific, positioning yourself with like credibility and authority.
Love it. And reels?
Reels?
What are your takes on reels? I mean, it's the brand new thing this year.
Yeah.
Fully. And it's only getting more.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's so many things I could say. I think, reels are great because, like, it's the same skill that you can just add to TikTok. Like, you can just do this, like, TikToks and reels, and you're already kind of doing the same kind of videos, and you probably could get some more eyeballs from TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could just take those eyeballs and bring them over to your Instagram page where you could actually, like, you know, nurture them and maybe book a call or something. But I think, like, Reels to me, I've seen a lot more visibility with Reels and carousels for some reason.
Yep.
But I do love Reels because, like, you're showing up on video, and I forget the stat on this, but, like, it's like sales pages with video do like 75% better or something because people can feel your energy and stuff like that. So I think they're great to build more connection. They tend to be the thing on Instagram that gets pushed out the most. You have the most chance of getting visibility with Reels. And then I have seen carousels doing very well as well. I find those are better. Like if you're telling a client story and you're like, how I helped Sandra make $20,000 in her health coach. Damn, I said Sandra again.
Sandra's our person.
How I helped Kristen make $20,000.
Sandra's killing it.
And yeah, Sandra is killing it. Yeah. But like how I helped Kristen, you know, make $20,000 in her business. And then it's a piece of value, but it's like very credibility, authority, you know, focus, stuff like that. But yeah, I see like Reels and carousels are working very well. And then lives are kind of cool because the cool thing is you pop up in the front on Instagram. Like it's a visibility tactic. Plus, if you're live with someone, like both audiences get notified. So whether you're interviewing or being interviewed, like I've definitely gotten clients from that. And like random side tangent, this is a total strategy, especially if you're newer. You can kind of leverage other people's audiences because it takes a lot to build know, like, and trust with people you don't know. But if you get introduced to someone else's audience, like just like I'm getting introduced to your audience right now, they already trust me because you trust me. And so you lend all the relationship that you built with them, now I have with them. Like not on maybe the same level, but like a lot, right?
Yeah, and now they're going to go get to know you.
Totally. So anyways, those are my thoughts on like Reels versus carousels versus lives. I think lives can be really good because they are like a bit interactive. I wouldn't use them as much though.
Even if people don't watch the live, somehow if you're going live, you're more credible than if you don't go live.
100%.
Like, you might not get anyone watch it, but like your audience is going to see that you went live and be like, oh, cool. Like she's doing lives. So she must know what she's talking about.
Yeah.
Even no one's there.
Totally. Yeah. Lives are a vibe though. Like sometimes no one is there and you just have to show up because people watch the replay and stuff like that. So.
They do. Yeah. I showed up live while I was in Thailand and I was nervous because I hadn't been on social media in a really long time and I just wasn't really ready, but I was like, I'm gonna do it. And because I was telling everyone else to do it while I kept meeting them in Thailand, and I was like, okay, gotta start walking the walk here. And and then like 200 people watched it later, so you're like okay, I guess it was worth it. And so it's just kind of got to get over that voice in your head.
Totally. And to be fair, like I have these fears too. Like I literally never went live until May of 2022. I like never went live on Instagram.
This year.
Yeah, what, 5 months ago? You know,
not far. Yeah,
not very long ago because I just had never done it. And I think it wasn't until I was launching something that I was like, I really need to be visible right now. Like, what do I need to do? I'll do anything. And so it's like you kind of force yourself through to do it.
And one thing I do have a question about, because I swear, like, my intuition's pretty solid on what's going to run. Like, I started my business before Instagram was like the main tool for businesses. And I knew it was going to be the community builder that would shift how people like grew brick and mortar. And, so it's been really interesting to watch that grow. And YouTube, like I know we've all loved, like YouTube's a loved social media platform that's been around for a while, but I'm recognizing now like the conversation around YouTube is becoming stronger and more people are ready to actually get on it than ever before. So like smaller businesses and less like there's like this nervousness. But I'm curious what your thought process is around YouTube, and do you think it's a secondary platform, or do you think it could be a lead generation platform for personal brands?
So, I have a couple different thoughts on this. I think one of them is that, I mean, and I don't think this is maybe new to anyone who's listening to this, but like Instagram, and I actually do think some of these platforms are shifting. Like I think TikTok's becoming more SEO friendly.
Yep.
Like, I think I heard something like it's coming up before Google searches sometimes. Like TikTok is coming up first. So TikTok is getting SEO friendly, which is crazy. I'm assuming Instagram's going to follow suit because Instagram's doing everything that TikTok's doing because they're like, don't
Yes.
take us over, right?
Yeah.
But now YouTube, like, I mean, YouTube's doing YouTube Shorts. So part of me is like, Morgan, why don't you have a, like, this is how I talk to myself. I'm like very like, anyways, I'm like, why don't, like, how come, like, where's our VA? Like, how come we don't have a VA? Like, why don't you have a VA helping you take these things that you're doing on Instagram or TikTok and just posting them to YouTube Shorts, like leaving money on the table? Like, this is leverage. Like, why are you not, you already have created them. So I do see that, like, TikTok is like kind of, or like YouTube is kind of bringing back around. They're trying to stay more relevant too. Like, they're adding in the short form content. They understand that our attention spans are probably way shorter than a goldfish now, right?
Yeah.
Because we've been shorter than a goldfish for a bit, but it's probably even worse now.
Yeah.
So I think that, like, I do think YouTube's coming back around, and I think also, like, what I've heard from people is that, well, actually, I actually have had this experience too, is like, it's just a bit of a longer game, YouTube. Like, it's not like you're going to probably post and get people tomorrow, but because it's a search engine, like, I've just heard that it's much more of a longer game. Like, it's like a game you're gonna have to start playing for like a year, and you can't like post a couple times and be like, oh, this didn't work for a month. Like, you can't do a 30-day challenge. Like, you got to just keep doing it. So yeah, I think like it is something that I'd like to get on, and I think that's why I even posted the first podcast like last week and just put it on YouTube. It's like, why
And you
not?
got like 6 likes, didn't you? I think I looked at it.
Like 8 likes,
yeah.
or I think 60 people watched it or something, or it clicked on it or whatever. But it accumulates things over time. So
It does. I think that's the thing about YouTube, is what people say is like the content doesn't die on YouTube the same way that it can on social media, on like the other platforms.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to say too that I didn't hit on, and I'm glad you just said what you said, is like part of the reason I posted that podcast on YouTube is that it's a longer form piece of content, and like up until this point, like, it sounds crazy to me, but like it's like how you build this much of a business on 30-second snippets or 60-second snippets. Like, the depth of relationship that you're able to build is just so much deeper on YouTube or on a podcast because you're with someone. And you can actually fully explain your thoughts. Like, I can't fully explain my thoughts in a 60-second reel. I'm just barely telling you even the surface. And then I have to, like, leave. So I do think that I see YouTube as a long game, unless it's like the shorts, but I see it as a longer game. And I see it less of a lead capture thing and more of a lead nurture thing. So, like, you get the eyeballs probably more through Instagram or TikTok, and you bring them to, you know, YouTube. And then they can build a deeper, like, more depth with you. You can nurture them, right? And build more like, connection, basically.
Yeah.
More like, and trust.
It's a place for you to share, like, how you think and show your thought process and how it is unique compared to all the other people out there that they may be kind of vetting as well. And it's a way to get your intellectual property, like, fully verbalized in a way that's, like, makes sense versus trying to keep it really, like, in those 30 seconds.
Totally.
Or 90 seconds max.
And another thing too is, like, even with YouTube, I mean, I don't know what kind of videos people are posting, but I'd imagine that I could post some videos that are similar to the ones that I even have on my training platforms, where I'm using Loom or something, and I can, like, have a diagram to show them, versus on Instagram I can't really teach as visually, you know?
Yeah, and there's this woman, her name's Louise Henry. I don't know if you ever heard of Louise Henry. She's actually in BC.
Cool.
But she's known for, like, product. Like, she teaches people how to use different softwares and launches and stuff. And she puts, like, visuals in her YouTube videos. So, like, she'll like you can do so many crazy things that you just can't quite do get the same impact.
Totally.
And yeah, so it's just been really interesting. So it's definitely something that, as I move into 2023, it's a platform that I'm curious about. But I still feel like, personally, my favorite platform for growth as a business is always Instagram. It's just a beautiful platform, and it's community driven, and you can just create connections so quickly and authentically, and create deep connections that the other platforms don't allow you to do in the same way.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, if you post a YouTube video and someone comments on it, okay, you can comment back, but you can't voice note them. You can't one-to-one them. You can't send them a picture or a video, or they can't vote on your polls. You can't really interact with them. So you hit the nail on the head there. Like, Instagram is really unique in that way. Like, you can take people from stranger to, like, I want to buy from you, like, in 24 hours if they're in the fast lane, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is wild. And you've nailed
It's
to do it.
crazy.
Proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
250K
Yeah.
in the bank
Yeah.
plus,
Yeah.
because the year's not over yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know we're almost about to hit an hour here, or we may have already, but as like we're filming this now right before 2023 hits, so
Mhm.
I always love to ask the question, if there is like a word or a phrase that you wanted to enter the new year with, what would it be?
I actually have it on my whiteboard
Excellent.
already. Um, and it's space.
Ooh,
Yeah,
interesting.
that's my word. Which I actually think goes with delegation queen.
Does.
Um, but I do find that 2022 has been a lot of growth for me. I mean, like I 4x my business and
You did.
also like did a lot, like an ungodly amount of traveling. And while that was like really fun and really exciting and, exhilarating, there were some moments in the year, specifically toward the end of the summer and like fall, where I was kind of like, I feel a little bit burnt. Like,
Mm.
I've been having a great time, but I feel like it's been a lot of being on and there hasn't been a lot of space. And so I think my intention this year is like along the lines of having more space, probably delegating more things, having more time to reflect, and probably spending like more time in my zone of genius and like letting people help me with things. So I think it's something to do with that.
Yeah, some
Yeah,
receiving energy going on.
totally. It was just it
Yeah.
was a lot of, I feel like it was a lot of like go go go, like type A, like masculine energy, and I'm like, I would like to just dial that back a
A
little
little
bit. I still
balance.
love that, but I would like to dial it back a bit.
So I'll take some of your masculine energy. I'll
Great.
give you some of my feminine flow energy,
Yeah.
and then we can balance each other out so I can actually move forward a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Just your messages and like getting me organized for this was like a kick in the butt. So
I love
thank
it.
you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm really excited to stay connected. And I feel like we'll probably have to do another one of these as you continue to move forward. But what's on like the goals list for 2023? Like what are you launching? How can people continue to work with you?
Mhm.
I think I love ending on that. So people can continue to go find you on Instagram and
Cool,
learn more.
cool. I would say first things first is just, if you have to pause this podcast, go for it. But take out your phone, open up Instagram app, type in at I am Morgan Gillis, and if nothing else, just hit the blue button and follow me. There's tons of like, you can learn a lot from how I sell, just watching things. If you have any questions, DM me. I post a ton of content on there. So if nothing else, if you're like, I have no interest in working with this chick, just follow at I am Morgan Gillis, Um, and then that being said, like, if you are interested in any support, I mean, just send me a DM and I'll let you know like what offers I have open. At the moment, I don't know when is this podcast coming out?
Ideally it'll be within January.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So I will say that I do have a group program launching mid to later January. I think it's like the 18th we start or something like that. So that's like for coaches who kind of want to go full time. They want to hit consistent 5K months or 10K months or whatever it is, right? They want to learn the marketing and sales stuff. So if that's something that you're interested in, like you say, send me a DM. I'll give you the deets. So that's pretty much where you can find me. And then goals for 2023. Yeah. I mean, business goals. I don't know if I want to share necessarily my
You don't have to
business
share the
goals.
details. I'm a huge fan of keeping them pretty tight
I
too.
kind of like them, keeping them to myself. But I mean, mostly, if I was to generalize my goals, is like, I want to make my product better. I want to make my customer experience even better. I just want to keep improving on that. I also want to grow the business. And I do want to have some more space. And I think there's some travel on the horizon for sure. Could be Costa Rica, could be Mexico,
Ooh.
could be maybe Thailand. Have a friend who's in Thailand, so I might have to hit you up for some stuff. But yeah, more space, more travel, and then better client results and more income. More income, more impact. That's pretty much it.
More income, more impact. I'm going to write that
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And fun,
Amazing.
obviously.
I love it.
Yeah.
And the book recommendation, can you say that one more time? That million guy? That million, what was it?
Yeah, so it's like $100 offers. So $100 million offers. And it's by Alex Hormozy. He's
Okay.
he's like at Hormozy on Instagram.
Yep, add that to the book list.
Yeah, it's very good. I've read it almost 5 times now in the last year. It's hilarious.
There's those books that you kind of just, they're like little, they're just really key. I've got a couple that I read at least 3 to 4 times a year. Keep me on track.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a difference like between reading a book to just read it and like reading a book to mine literally every single nugget of gold and execute on it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing so much wisdom. And I'm excited for everyone to connect with you on social media. And this podcast will be launched within January. So we'll be trekking towards our goals already. And for those that maybe haven't created a goal yet, I hope that this inspires you to do that. If you have been contemplating stepping out and becoming a coach and owning that role, do it. Morgan is a perfect example. She did it. It was a rocky road to get there at the beginning, as it always is. I've got a fun story too. But you always get to the other side as you continue to stand out and amongst the crowd and continue to be yourself, just like the flamingos we all are. So, with that, I shall leave everyone to follow along. Leave us a comment if you can. If you have any questions or anything, you know where to find me at BNL Social. I am behind the scenes on the DMs as well. And I look forward to seeing what 2023 has to bring for everyone. Thank you, Morgan, for joining.
Thank you so much for having us. You guys should DM us your intention for 2023.
Yeah. I would love that. Send us your words. We'll know exactly what you mean. Just the one word. Don't say anything else.
Yeah. Cool.
Amazing. All right. Well, have a wonderful rest of your day, Morgan. And I look forward to connecting and sharing space with you again.
Heck yeah. Thanks so much.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.